Okay, so I can safely say I haven't been this pissed off coming out of a movie in some time. You know how fanboys and girls online have been doing nothing but bitching about The Last Jedi for the past 2 fucking years? And I just can't, I'm just so thrilled that the new trailer for the next one is dropped so that everybody can start bitching about that when it comes out. And I watch those movies and I'm like, okay, just calm down. And yet, I think this is my equivalent. This is my equivalent of that film. Also, I feel like before I begin getting into the details of this thing that I just watched, I gotta state that I believe that films and art need to be judged on their own merit. I should judge this film not as a rebooting of a series or something like that, but as its own entity. I understand that. But here's the problem with that, is that in this day and age of remakes, reboots, reimaginings, and whatnot, that is becoming increasingly more difficult to do because the memory of what was is still very fresh in our minds. Boy, that is really bugging me. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, there we go. Cutting off the top of my head. Sorry about that. And so I fear that in this review, I am going to be doing a lot of comparing this to the other two, the original Hellboy movies. And I feel like that may present the image that I can't divorce the two. And in a way, I can't. But I'm using them as a point of comparison as to why those films worked and this film didn't. It's not because it's not one of those films. All right? It's because this film is just so mother effing generic. For those who don't know, all right, and if you don't, you need to, all right, the original Hellboy and Hellboy 2, The Golden Army, directed by now Academy Award winner Guillermo del Toro of Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water fame, starring makeup creature legend Ron Perlman, fellow makeup creature legend Doug Jones, John Hurt as Professor Bloom. These films were small, quiet. These came out before the superhero revolution, just on the cusp of it. I remember the first one came out when I was still in college, and the second one came out when I was in grad school. I think it predates Iron Man, I think. So these films did not have the scope and, the far-reaching franchise planning that is so prevalent with the superhero genre today. They were self-contained, interesting, visionary films. And I do not say visionary lightly, because Guillermo del Toro is one of our greatest living directors, and he is a visionary. He has a very distinct style and look to his films, and Hellboy and Hellboy 2 are marinated in them. Okay? And it is that visual style and that attention to detail that helps those films stand out. All right? They are, at the same time, they have Guillermo del Toro's signature thumbprint on them. I don't know quite what you'd call it. I guess the best term I can come up with is beautifully grotesque. Guillermo del Toro in his filming has a way of making something ugly, and yet in the angles, in the shapes, also make them strangely beautiful. in the way, not just in the design of the character or the monster, but also in the design of the world they inhabit. That they're ordinary and yet beautiful and yet hideous, and there is such an attention to detail to every single shot. You know, every creature, every prop is so meticulous in its detail to fit that singular vision. This film is generic as shit. It has none of that. It has no identity of its own. It does have an identity. The identity is trying to look like a sci-fi original movie back before Sharknado hit, and they were purposefully making their movies look bad. This one looks like one of their monster movies back when they were actually trying to convince you that these things were actually scary or serious. Maybe just with a bigger budget. It is all so unbelievably boring to look at. And boring to be in, boring to experience. It is a dredge of a film. You know, okay, prime example, okay? And again, sorry, but we're going to use the comparisons we've got. You know how the original Hellboy, the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, or Defense and Research, I can never really remember, their headquarters is underground and yet has this huge cathedral-like look, and, you know, like you've entered a world that is somehow a mix of the modern and the old. You know how it has and its own unique identity? Well, fuck that. Headquarters is a fucking room with a bunch of TV monitors on it. Wow, I'm transported into another world of make-believe. All right? And I'm sorry, but the visual style, going all the way back to the comic books, is what made Hellboy different than your standard superhero. So, okay, so that's all shit. But, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can have generic-looking films as long as the character work is all interesting and good and new, right? Well, don't get your fucking hopes up. This new Hellboy, Stranger Things sheriff, nothing against him as an actor, but this is a terrible character. There is no character. I mean, seriously, I'm sorry. Go watch the originals. Watch what Ron Perlman does with that character. Yeah, he's a blue-collar, heavy-drinking, sarcastic guy, but he's fucking human. There are layers to that character. This one, he's going to the Deadpool school of movie hero. I've got snarky one-liners, and that's all I fucking need. And that problem extends to the rest of the cast as well. You know, again, how in the originals, Abe Sapien, Liz, Professor Broom, you know, the other, even minor agents of the Bureau, they had a chemistry, they had a history. When they spoke to each other, you got the feeling that this was a family, a group of people that had worked and served and lived together for years, and that helped ground Hellboy as a character and as a theme in the duality of his nature. Is he a man or is he a monster? That is the constant question of Hellboy. And having those other characters who are all fully fleshed out, fully realized, with characters with flaws and idiosyncrasies and insecurities, having all of them surround him made him a more well-rounded character, made them more well-rounded characters, and made the story more well-rounded and interesting. Well, fuck that. He's a wannabe Deadpool, and he's given two generic sidekicks. Snarky streetwise girl and the agent who doesn't quite like Hellboy, and so, but they grow to respect each other. It's just like every fucking cop movie. And what in the hell are Daniel Day Kim and Thomas Hayden Church doing in this piece of shit? Daniel Day Kim is one of the best character actors working. All right? He is underappreciated. His work is awesome. He brings believability and a natural energy to every fucking project and part he plays. What is he doing being wasted on this generic one-note character? And Thomas Hayden Church, what in the hell? Yeah. Oh, but, this movie does have its own identity, pardon me. I mean, it's got swearing and gore. And as we've learned from Deadpool, that's all you need to make a mature story. Have them say shit and fuck, and then show a lot of gore. Now it's an adult movie. The other films were more adult and handled heavier subject matter of what it means to be human and what it means to be a man and how you are defined by your choices, not by your destiny. Way better than this, but I'm sure people will go, oh, it's more mature because it's got gore in it. Fuck you. Yeah, it seems like they looked at everything and said, what is the most boring, generic look that we can achieve for this film? And let's do that. Also, sorry, and again, no, I know what, I'm not sorry. I am not sorry. I keep saying sorry to compare this to a much better movie, but I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry those two movies are better. I'm not sorry they actually took time and hired good actors with a good script to play good characters to convey their good movie. I'm not sorry. If you can't live up to this Hellboy 2019, that is your fucking problem, not mine for comparing it to you. So anyway, as I was saying before that little rant, you know how the relationship between Hellboy and his father, Professor Prüm, is like one of the defining moments of his character because it is that love that he got, that grooming that he got, that helped him resist temptation. Well, they try to make that the key of this movie. However, it's shoehorned in right at the end. And they try to make the relationship between Hellboy and his father, Ian McShane, I'm not joking, that's who's playing him, kind of the center of the film, but it doesn't work because all they do is yell at each other. Meanwhile, the other ones get a much more complex and interesting relationship conveyed in very little screen time. Like, I'd say 30% of the movie. That's it. And they get more of a character and more of a relationship than this thing does in the seemingly endless eternity that this film took. Oh, and going back to my boring and generic look, they flash back to to Hellboy's origin, in this film. And of course, if you've seen the original, that's like the whole first, the first like 10, 15, 20 minutes of the movie. And again, hey, all that really interesting visual stuff and exciting character and costume design and an exciting action scene. Well, screw that. I mean, that is when I really got mad, is when they reshot that whole origin scene and just how awful it looked compared to the original. Now, I want to get this straight. I'm saying this a lot, but I do not hate this movie because it's not the original. I want to make that clear. For instance, let me give you a good example. Let me give you two good examples here. To me, the greatest Spider-Man movies are the ones done by Sam Raimi. Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, and yes, I believe Spider-Man 3 had merit, though it didn't stick the landing. Now, does that mean that I hate The Amazing Spider-Man because it's not those films? No, I hate the Amazing Spider-Man movies because they are shit that completely miss the point of the character. But I enjoy Spider-Man Far From Home. Spider-Man Homecoming. Far From Home's the new one I haven't seen yet. Just because it is not the Sam Raimi ones, that doesn't mean that it's bad. It has its own merit. It's not as good, but it does a lot of new things and does them in an interesting way and does something new with them. Okay? It's not just because it's not that film. Another great example. I love the original Planet of the Apes series. Love it to death. The original and its first 3 sequels are phenomenal movies. Now, does that mean I hate Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes because it's not those? No. I hate the Tim Burton one because it's shit. Because, again, it misses the point of what made those movies work and what makes a good movie work. Conversely, I love the Andy Serkis trilogy. So I do not hate this movie, and I am not ragging so hard on this movie because it refuses to be the Ron Perlman, Guillermo del Toro ones. That is not the point. I hate this movie because you have an opportunity here to hand this franchise. You want to start this franchise over again? Fine. Yes, I would have loved to have seen another Guillermo del Toro, Ron Perlman, Doug Jones, Hellboy and Starman. I would have loved that. I would also love it if I could flutter my arms and fly. Okay? You want to reboot the series? Be my guest. Fine. We live in that age. We just need to get used to it. So hand the film over to a new director with a new eye, a James Gunn type person, and let them have fun with the world. This film, again, the generic nature of it, the boring look, the boring performances, it sucks the life out of what was one of the most interesting characters and interesting film franchises in the superhero movie pantheon. Someone who was truly different. And this thing just slams it up there and makes it just like everybody else, only worse. That's what I'm mad at. That's what I hate, and that's why I'm so pissed off at this piece of shit. So, completely without merit. There are a couple scenes that are interesting. There's a scene out of nowhere where Hellboy fights Baba Yaga, which is pretty creepy and pretty interesting. And that was the point I was like, okay, if the movie had been a little bit more like this, I probably wouldn't be so mad at it. But that's not what it was. Like, even the gross out, the gore was uninspired and uninteresting. Again, you know what the gore kind of reminded me of? It reminded me of the gore from Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow movie, which I actually like. But that gore was meant to be kind of over the top and a little bit old school looking. Here, it just looks bad. I just can't, So, I mean, there's more I could bring up, but as I'm trying to think here of other things that piss me up, it just all comes back to the same thing. And eventually you're just beating the dead horse, just saying the exact same thing over and over and over again. Guillermo del Toro is a much more gifted director with a much more interesting directorial eye. And this director is not, or either he's not, or he was not allowed to be. This thing does have, I will say that, this thing does have the feeling of a film that they wanted to put out, but they didn't want to spend a lot of money on, in case it bombed. Okay, fine. But, again, comparing, sorry, but you could tell that the other 2 Hellboy movies were not exactly, throwing Disney or Warner Brothers money around. They were a little bit more streamlined, but Del Toro managed to take that smaller budget and whatnot and help make that more confined, more personal feel part of the strength of the movie. Here, It just looks like a film that is stretching so hard and so far that it ends up breaking. So again, I just think there's so much, everything else I could say, everything else I could point out is just coming back to the same thing. So, final grade for Hellboy 2019. And this gives me no joy, but I gotta go F. I gotta go an F on this one. I was leaning towards a D- at one point, but I don't know, this just feels lazy and uninspired, and it's not worth your time. So please, if you feel like you want to go watch this movie, for the love of God, go rent, download, rewatch the original Guillermo del Toro films instead. Because if you go see this movie, they may make another one. And let's not have that. So, that is my review of Hellboy 2019. So, sorry, a lot of frustration there coming out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, but, you know, just sometimes you just want to slap things. All right, well, hopefully the next one will be better. So, until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.